Reflections on the Good News of Jesus Christ according to Matthew for Sunday, the 13th Sunday of Ordinary Time. Jesus said to his apostles, "Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And if you do not take up your cross and follow after me, you are not worthy of me. If you find your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, you will find it. Whoever receives you receives me. And whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. Whoever receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever receives a righteous person because he is a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if you give only a cup of cold water to one of these little ones to drink because the little one is a disciple, I tell you truly, you will surely not lose your reward." The Gospel of the Lord. Have you ever noticed the number of flat-out contradictions in Scripture? For example, the last shall be first. You must lose your life in order to find it. Take the lowest seat if you want to have the highest. The Son of Man came to serve, not to be served. A virgin will conceive. An old woman with an old husband will give birth to a child. And that happens more than once. We might have said that if we want to be first, we would have to get into the front of the line, not the end. And if we want to be alive, we must strive, work hard, and get ahead so as not to lose our lives, and so on. These are common sense, aren't they? Instead, this Sunday's gospel is introducing us gently and partially to ways in which such common sense opinions do not go deep enough. Look at one such statement of Jesus, the one that may sound the craziest and make the least common sense of all. If you find your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, you will find it. What is Jesus talking about? Most of us probably learned, and from an early age, that life is about setting goals and then working hard, practicing hard, studying hard to achieve them. We're able to achieve almost anything if we are willing to strive hard enough. At least, that's the dominant message of our culture and many others. Life, how we form it, what we get out of it, what we make of it, is, to state it bluntly, up to us. However, going down that road may exact quite a price. A story may help. The company threw a lavish dinner to honor its CEO upon his retirement. His rise to the top spot in the company had been meteoric. His management of the company through tough times and boom times had been flawless. Everything he touched, it seemed, turned to gold. He had made himself, the company's senior managers and stockholders, very wealthy people. At the retirement dinner, the CEO addressed his remarks to the company's young executives. "I know you want my job, and I'll tell you how to get it. Last week, my daughter was married, and as I walked her down the aisle, I realized I did not know the name of her best friend, who was also her maid of honor. I did not know the title of the last book she read. I didn't even know her favorite color. That's the price I paid for this job, If you want to pay that price, you can have it. Now, contrast that with this story. A certain woman said, "My dad was a doctor. That meant that there were a whole lot of people we kids didn't know whose claim on his time could disrupt whatever we wanted to do." Dad didn't think of his work as a career or a profession, but as a vocation, the work to which God called him and for which God had given him the necessary gifts. Mom supported him so much that long before celibacy was a topic of serious debate in the church, she used to say, "If a devoted physician can be married, so could a priest." She, more than anyone else, understood the price of his dedication, and she shared it. She also understood the message of Jesus we just heard. The CEO has only begun to understand it. His pitiable valedictory to the young executives echoes Jesus's words. We can become so absorbed with building a career that we fail to develop our full potential and gifts as human beings and as sons and daughters of God. We can become so obsessed with creating and maintaining a lifestyle that we fail to live a life worth living. Christ calls all who would be his disciples, that includes us, to lose life's obsessive, meaningless, and petty pursuits in order to find a life fully human, joyful, and meaningful. That self-made image of life, having life as I've designed it, must die if we are to become the unique image of God that God created each of us to be, and that will increasingly bring us a full measure of peace and joy. In other words, it isn't easy being a follower of Christ. He speaks today of the sacrifice demanded of his disciples and the suffering that they will endure for their faith. Yes, his words do sound harsh to our ears, but to the people of his time, Jesus is just using extreme language, as he frequently does, not to be understood literally, but to make a point. Jesus was not attacking family life. He was saying that to be his disciples demands a complete commitment to his mission of reconciliation and peace in our families and elsewhere, setting aside anything that would distract us from that call. This reading is one of many reminders that Christianity is much more than an armchair activity or a once-a-week time of prayer. In effect, Jesus is telling the disciples, nothing, no commitment, no love, no desire can be more important than this calling. He went on to assure them, it will cost you your life, that is, life on your terms, and it will give you your life's meaning. But Jesus didn't stop there. He also promised, if you lose what you think is your life for my sake, you will actually find your true life. He is saying that his disciples can be like him, formed in his image. The disciples of Jesus live and work to demonstrate that there is an alternative to the way things have always been. Our example offers proof that the forces working against Jesus are doomed. The more we believe and act on this gospel truth, the more it becomes a reality in and through us. That is what the Christian vocation is all about. It's not essentially a matter of whether we are priests, teachers, religious, cooks, parents, physicians, farmers, carpenters, or whatever. The crux of the matter is whether or not we are willing to become images of God. Whether our commitment to Christ is equal to the task before us. We are called to the kind of prophetic dedication that will lead people to know Christ's love because they have met us. Jesus said exactly that when he said, "Whoever receives you receives me." Paul, in his letter to the Romans, is making a similar point, but using a different image. He speaks of being baptized into Christ's death so that we might live a new life. Now, it helps if you know that in the time of Jesus, swimming was not a popular or even widespread skill. So, for most people, to enter into any large body of water meant going down and not coming back up. It meant death. In the first several centuries of Christianity, when people were baptized, that's how symbolically it was done, by immersion, meaning that they went down into the water and then came back up, a symbol of dying to a former way of life, being buried in the water, but then emerging from the water to a new life as a follower of Christ. That symbolizes what we are all called to do, even after we are baptized, dying to anything that is not of Christ and rising to be an ever more authentic image of Christ. Something else we heard Jesus tell his followers was that the one who welcomes you welcomes me, and the one who welcomes me welcomes him who sent me. Hospitality in the ancient world, with no motels or Starbucks, was a matter of life or death. Especially in desert lands, travelers had to rely on the hospitality of strangers. But how good are we as a society at extending hospitality, making people welcome? The homeless are often not welcome anywhere, locked outside by a society that does not want to adequately fund public housing, and pursued by the enforcers of laws that make it illegal to be homeless. Stories of exclusive institutions refusing to welcome people of color or Jews or women are still occasionally heard. Not long ago, hardly a week passed when we were not told of yet another executive order making it more difficult, if not impossible, for immigrants to enter our country, even those seeking asylum from danger in their home countries. Yes, there is much work to be done if the gospel message of Jesus is to become more real in our midst. As he said, whatever we do, even to the least of our brothers and sisters, we do to him. It is a real challenge being followers of Jesus. None of us can do it alone. That is why we come together, even if virtually, to remind one another that we are not alone, that together we have committed ourselves to supporting each other in the great mission that, through our baptism, we have accepted from Jesus. Thanks for listening.